Hi, it's Chris Titley here as part of the Scoreboard podcast series. I'm joined by Jason Cadee. Jason, thank you so much for being part of this series.
Thanks for having me.
Jason, we're sitting here on the 21st of February 2025, freshly retired from basketball. How are you feeling?
It's all started to slow down the last few days. So I was going to say the week started to slow down, and I couldn't remember what day it is because it's that period where that first week off the off season, you don't really know what day it is. So, look, it's been overwhelming the last couple of weeks. It's been nice that it's all slowed down a little bit. And part of me doesn't feel like I've retired just because this part of the off season, when you finish, is so normal to kind of have nothing on out of nowhere. So,
Yes,
weird.
so it's when the preseason starts that you think, I actually don't have to do it anymore.
Yes, that's, I think, when it'll really kick in that I'm no longer playing.
And looking back on 2024 and reflecting on 2024, obviously a very important time for you to make that decision and some thoughts going through your head and the basketball that you're playing. Do you want to give a bit of a snapshot of last year and how you were thinking about it?
Yeah, it's kind of one of those things, I guess. People forever and a day have always said, what's next? What's after basketball? What about when basketball's not around? And it's one of those things as an athlete, you go, well, I'm not worried about that because I'm worried about just every day getting better and trying to be the best I can at this. And it's obviously being an elite athlete or a professional athlete, so much of your time has to go into that because so many people are trying to take your spot each year. But it was honestly about 12 months ago, the CEO and founder of Step One, Greg Taylor, I'd had a bit of a relationship from him just because I got a pair of the underwear. I really liked it. So I was like, how do I get more? And that formed in about 2021. So we kind of, I'd say a bit of a friendship, and we kind of go back and forth, and he'd come to me with things or I'd go to him with things, and we started to develop this kind of relationship. He'd be watching games. And then about 10, 12 months ago, he said, all right, I've had enough. I want you to join and I want you to help me do some things and bring athletes on board and start to expand that. I said, okay, let's do it. If you know Greg, he's kind of one of those guys you just say yes to. And that just transformed over this last 12 months. Became a part-time job for me. I was just doing it in and around basketball. He was really good about my time, and when I could do some, just make sure I get some done. And so I really enjoyed kind of that balance of having something outside of basketball. And then it got to the point where I kind of also sat there and said, it's probably nearing a point where he's going to say to me, I want you full time. What am I prepared to do? Am I prepared to do that and stop playing basketball? How do I go about it? And I just kind of thought to myself, I've seen so many people come in and out of this job. I've seen people that came in for 1 year left, came in for 10 years left. I've kind of been there the whole time. And when it's not there, they all go, what's next? What am I going to do? I don't know what to do. And I thought to myself, I'm actually kind of taking that away, and I'm actually choosing to retire and moving into something that I really enjoy. So it was a weird process, and it's something that you probably, as an athlete, I've seen a fellow person who retired recently. It feels like you're quitting, which is the opposite of what you're told to do as an athlete. And so I, once I got my head around it, I thought it was the right time, the perfect time for me and my family, and it was the right job to go into as well.
Yeah, and 5 years ago, did you think that you'd be working for an underwear company?
You could have asked me 2 years ago and I would have said no chance. It still doesn't. It's still, when people say it, you left basketball to work for an underwear company, it does make me laugh. But yeah, mate, I spoke to you about it before we got on this. The product's elite.
I'm wearing them today, actually. So yeah,
yeah,
Step
well,
One, get some. I'm not going to show the listeners out there that I'm wearing the Step One undies, but they are comfy, and I can vouch for that.
No, it was one of the things. Like, I just believed in the product, and then once I met the person who was behind it all and started it and built it, I believe in him. And so it was just one of these spaces where I was like, sometimes I guess being an athlete, you go on this journey, and I just feel like I've started to enter the journey with him, of my own journey on it, and it's just exciting. And it's also one of those things, whenever I've got people pairs or I've sent them out or I've organized some things, everyone's feedback is the exact same. These are incredible. And so, yeah, it's an exciting journey.
From an exciting journey coming forward to looking at that journey of basketball, looking back, you played 424 games, 3,680 odd points, 14 seasons. How do you feel about that looking back there now?
15 seasons. You cut one off me.
Sorry, mate. 15 seasons. Right, that's it. I'm fired. You can quit the podcast now.
No. Like, see, I've got to make sure these things are right now, because soon it's going to get, like, as I get older.
Did 424, right?
Yeah, you got that right. Nailed that. The hardest part you got.
3,688 points. So you could be pretty
I,
close to that, you reckon?
I have no idea. Now you're getting the stuff I don't know about.
Four
But
teams?
yeah, it was a dream when I was a kid. My dad was the CEO of the West Sydney Razorbacks. That started when I was about 7 years old. So from the age of 7, I was essentially in around game days, in around trainings at an NBL team, and that's a lot of my memories. A lot of my memories were around NBL teams, around basketball stadiums. When I was younger, it was all I wanted to do. And so part of me sits here now and goes, if I could show that 7-year-old, 8-year-old me that I'd actually played 15 years, I think it'd be a pretty cool thing to be able to show someone that dreamt that. So it's a weird process, but yeah, cool.
When you were a kid, who were you following, and who were the players at the time?
Well, anyone that played for the Razorbacks, so anyone that played for them. So back then, like people like Derek Rucker, John Riley, Simon Dwight, Sam McKinnon, like the list goes on of people that played for them that I really liked. Andrew Gaze and Shane Hill were obviously two people that I loved watching and following, and we had a close relationship through my dad's nephew being their agent. And then I love Kobe. I was a big Kobe guy when I was younger. Obviously, the NBA when I was younger wasn't as easy to watch as it is now.
Yeah.
But I was a big Kobe fan.
Mate, you had Channel 10 midday. I think you had about an hour, or the top 10 plays of the week. That's all I got when I was growing up on the NBA. That was it. And you sort of had to you press record on your VHS to sort of watch them again, right? And rewind.
You get that late night 30-minute show
or
that'll pop up
tonight.
now and then. Yeah, you get exactly.
Bill
no,
McDonald.
so it's not as easy as it is now. You can pick up your phone and watch whatever you want to watch.
And the love of basketball obviously came through your parents, you mentioned as well. But what was the game of basketball? What did that mean to you in regards to why you loved it so much?
I loved being good at something. I think that was when I was younger. But I would say for me, I've always been a people person. So for me, it was the space where all my friends were. It was where my family was. It was like everyone that I liked was in that setting. And so it was kind of how my life has gone on. All my mates, I felt like I put them on my schedule of when I play. We're all like, I just try to bring everyone along for the ride with me. And I'd say that's the one thing I love about basketball. And that's the one reason why I hope my kids play it. Not, I don't want to force them if they choose to play it, but I just love the setting of basketball and the people. And I felt like I grew up in such a great network of people. And yeah, I think that's a great thing and a reason that helped me grow to who I am today.
And when you realised that you're good at it, the dream was to potentially play in the NBL. The dream was getting closer to reality as you got older. When did you start thinking, actually, I'm a shot here?
It's probably around under 18s. When I was bottom age 18s, it was the first year as a bottom major. I had a pretty good year. I had a pretty good nationals campaign with New South Wales, and then top age 18s, it went to another level. I had a really good nationals. I was putting up massive numbers. I got to the stage where there was some conversations of, do I go and play in ABA, which is NBL 1 now? So I ended up in that top age 18s year. I played 18s. I played Youth League, which was under 23s. And I played a few games of ABA that year. So I that top age 18s, when I was starting to play in those environments, I realized how quickly things were moving. But then it was really when I got to the AIS. After that year, when I went down the AIS and I was part of the Australian junior team, and I was just in that setting every day, it just like I felt like everything went to another level. And yeah, that's kind of where it just all led to things jumping really quickly.
And mate, in and around that, something tragic happened in your life, and the people that have followed your career would understand and know the story, but the people out there, the listeners that haven't really followed you too closely, do you want to talk about what happened in July of 2010?
So essentially just after what I ran through, when I was at the AIS, I was there for a full year. We had the 19s. And then I went back the following year, but I was always only going back for a short time because I was either going to go to the NBL or go to college following that. And so I decided to go the NBL route. I wasn't going to go to college. I signed with the Gold Coast, and at that time my dad was coaching the Bankstown Bruins in the then ABA, now NBL 1. And so I made the decision, well, instead of staying down in the AIS where we're not playing as many games, I'll go back to Sydney and play for a few months leading into moving to the Gold Coast. And yeah, one day on the way home from a friend's house, mid-morning, to take the car back to my parents, on the freeway, just got pushed off the freeway, ended up spinning out on the gravel, and then basically landing sideways across the road in a semi-trailer, just absolutely cleaned me up on the driver's side. So I was stuck for about an hour and a half in the car, ambulances, helicopters, everything you can think of. Later to find out I was one, still alive, and two, I only had a broken pelvis, which sounds extreme, but in that situation, it was probably very fortunate it was only broken pelvis.
Yeah, no, and during that time, a lady called Ida, comforted you, and the story behind that's truly amazing. You tear up every time I see it. But yeah, the finding Ida. Do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, it was kind of a thing that took off. It kind of showed me. It was around the time when social media really was starting to take off. It was more Facebook and things back then, but um, there was a lady named Ida. I knew the name. I remember speaking to her in the car. I remember everything about her, but no idea what she looked like. I couldn't remember it. And for years, I was always like, this Ida lady, who is it? And there's not many ladies getting around with the name Ida, but my grandmother's name was Ida. So it was a bit of just a coincidence. And then a few people at the time, oh, you probably just imagine it, Jay, started. I said, no, she was in the car. I remember it. And then I told this story, and all of a sudden it took a media outlet, grabbed it, and then next minute it was all over socials. The NBL was doing it, everyone, and then next minute someone comes back from a paper out it towards Castle Hill or some Rouse Hill saying we found Ida. So they brought her along to a game, and it was a bit of a weird process to me too, because it was kind of like this piece where I didn't know if I wanted to uncover it or it was just a thing like just leave it. And then yeah, anyway, they brought her along to a game. We played New Zealand. I met her for the first time. There were obviously cameras in that there, which I did feel a bit bad because I didn't do it for the process of I wanted it to be filmed. But it became a pretty cool story, and I was lucky enough just to meet her and say thank you. It was more just someone who had meant something to me, but I'd never got to say thank you for climbing into a car that's wrecked and sitting there until the ambos and everything got there.
And telling you that you're okay, you'll be fine, keep going,
Yeah,
yeah?
yeah,
Oh, what an amazing moment. And she was from New Zealand. I think you touched up the breakers that night too.
we did, we did. So I had to say sorry to her for beating New Zealand, but she, yeah, just incredible that I could bring her into that setting. And I guess from the other side, she probably was always wondering what happened to that boy in the car. Wouldn't have probably known my name or anything. So I guess a moment for both to give a bit of clarity and hopefully a good feeling for her as well.
And speaking of moments post that accident with the pelvis, etc., and getting back on the court, how did you go about getting that? Sort of after that huge shock and something which obviously the flashbacks, etc., and getting back on the court and playing basketball.
Well, it helped that the accident was unrelated to basketball, so I just was doing everything I can to get back playing. It probably also helped. I was only 18 or 17 then. I think I was 18. So I was young and I treated it probably more like I just did my ankle rather than I have
Just
a
like
broken
brush it
pelvis.
off. Yeah.
So I actually, because I remember they told me, look, you probably won't play for 8 to 12 months. I played after 5.5 months. Um, then off the back of that, I realized it took me every bit of a year to get back to feeling somewhat normal because that first season there were days where I got up and I couldn't walk properly. There was a whole heap of things I was managing that first season. But it was just, I had a great support network, as I said earlier, a lot of good people around me being friends and family, but also the staff, the physios, the strength people that I had to help me through that time. I wouldn't have got back to playing if it wasn't for those people.
And the goal was always to get on the court and play in the NBL, and then your first game. Do you remember that?
I do. I do remember that. We played Townsville on the Gold Coast. I was absolutely crapping myself. I'd been from playing ABA 6 months earlier to not doing anything other than trying to work our way up to a game. I remember saying, should I go play like a local comp game or something first? They're like, no, you're right.
Don't get yourself
Oh,
injured.
yeah, exactly. But we played Townsville. I remember it just being like, it felt like a blur. And then I'm pretty sure I basically had to be helped to the car because I couldn't walk out of there because my hips had just seized up.
Right.
Um, so that was when I learned that it's going to take a lot of rehab and a lot of extra attention to get back going.
And the dream as a kid to get on the court and playing NBL and the reality of actually playing your first game, how different was it?
I think because of all I'd been through, it was almost like I was relieved that I was finally back playing more than I was in the NBL. So it probably actually took away from that moment of this is a dream come true to I'm finally back playing. But that first year and that kind of group of guys and Joey and the coaching stuff, like it was just a great group. So I just learnt so much for those first 2 years. So then being able to step out on the floor and play, you're almost so caught up in trying to play well and make sure that you do the right things and you don't mess up that you kind of lose track of, oh, I'm actually playing on an NBL court.
So the reflection comes after, not during, I'd imagine.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, and then getting to that first game going, I've made it, we're here. What was the goal then going, this is cool, I want to stay in as long as I can?
Pretty much. It was just like, okay, how do I get better? How do I play more minutes? What do I have to do? I was always watching, like, what's Adam Gibson do? What does James Harvey do? I was always watching what other people do and seeing how I could help them when I play or what I could do to make sure that they want to play alongside me. It was just about kind of picking up and noticing everything else and then seeing what I could use and apply for myself.
And basketball is a team sport, but there's also individual aspects of your own game, but then there's also roles within the team. How did you go about balancing that early on in your career?
I guess the part for me that I was very fortunate with was my family so entrenched in basketball that it came so naturally to me, just being able to pick up on plays or picking up on tendencies or things that people like. That was natural to me as a young fella. So the game didn't seem as quick as what it probably would for some others, just because I could understand where and what people like and what they want. So for me, a lot of it was just about being able to be on the court and making sure I was doing the little stuff that allowed me to play a bit longer. And then hopefully I could help other people play well. And that would then follow back to me when the time was right.
And then getting in those teams and making the starting five and then improving and getting your points and your assists and rebounds, etc. up. What do you think it was in your brain that made you better than others?
I think similar thing. My understanding, my ability to be able to play off people. I was never going to be the main person. And I think I knew that. Like I was never going to be the guy. But if we had a few of those guys, I think I could help them and then benefit from them being the guy. And so I always found, especially like in the Boomers environment, I always could do well because I could get the ball to the people that needed the ball, and then I'd be there ready to catch and shoot or make that decision off the back of them. So I was just always looking for ways to help the main person and ways to make people better around me because I felt like if I did that, we'd play better as a team and it allowed me to play longer, which would then allow me more opportunities to see things and get more shots.
Do you think that's one of your sort of entrenched values and principles?
Yeah, for sure. And I probably didn't appreciate it until I got older.
And where do you reckon that sort of the caring, prosperous natures come from?
Don't know. I'm just going to say mum and dad.
Yeah.
I'm just going to say that, and probably once again understanding the game well enough to know everything in around it. It just for me, anytime people would be like, "Just you need to be more selfish. You need to shoot the ball more." It wasn't who I was. So I was like, I'm not going to be. I just feel like anyone who tries to go away from who they are, they lose way of themselves, and that just wasn't for me.
And then you touched on playing for the Boomers. Interested to know when you got selected, how that made you feel, and the games playing for the Boomers.
Well, it was a surreal experience because I was still 17 when I first got called into it. So when I first went down the AIS, we went to a pre-Worlds tour in France, and we had a bunch of games. And then Marty pulled me, Matthew Dellavedova, Cody Ellis, and Brock Modem into a room and said, "You guys have been selected to go into the next Boomers camp when we get back." Like legit land to go into it. And we were like, wait, what? So we were so jet lagged that I remember by the time it came, we were like, we don't want to even do this because we were just a mess. We're up at 2 a.m. But went into that. It was a big camp, so there was a lot of people there. But we went into that environment and I got a bit of a taste of it. And then following on from the World Cup for the 19s, called into another camp, which then I made a trip to go to Argentina and Brazil. So that year became a whirlwind of events and the Boomers and the Junior and the Emus and signing an NBL deal. So there was just a lot unfolding in that process, and it was one of the most surreal things ever because I was rolling out. Remember on that tour there was Joe Ingles and Paddy Mills and Nate Jarwai and Brad Newley, like just those list of guys who weren't who they are now, but they were playing at high level places. I think Joe was in Barcelona at the time and Paddy was in Portland. Like it was a pretty cool experience.
Yeah, and getting that, I suppose, that culture as the Boomers is a lot talked about. You're coming from different places around the world and also different leagues and NBL. How do you think when you played for Australia? How was the culture then when you're playing representing your country?
It's the best because the thing that I guess everyone, when you go into like the NBL world, NBA, whatever you want to call it, it's a business. So it's very much a sport, but it's an entertainment business for one, because people need to go and watch it and people need to tune in for it to be all function. And people are making decisions based on not only games, but money. When you go to the Boomers, no one cares how much they play. No one cares who takes all the shots. You're not there for money. You're actually there to play for your country. And it's probably the only time in that setting when you've got a whole heap of dudes where people play the right way, because they're just there to win. And if it means waving a towel, I'll wave a towel. If it means playing 40 minutes, I'm playing 40 minutes. And so I always just love that environment, because I was like, this reminds me of what junior basketball was. We're just a bunch of people that love being away and playing together and trying to win games.
You're very empathetic, and it sounds to me you're very caring of others. When it comes to winning, are you a competitive person?
Oh yeah, hate losing.
And that's come from the early days of basketball, or siblings, or anything like that, or what?
Just all of it. My mate, as I said, like a lot of my friendship group were basketball players or whatever. So just between us playing games on a Saturday while our dads were playing, training for masters, or whether it was playing PlayStation or playing backyard cricket, it didn't matter. I've always liked winning. Um, and I think you have to have an element of that if you're going to be a professional sports person, because um, you need that kind of edge, and you need to sometimes be able to push your body further to win.
I typed into ChatGPT the game log of Jason Cadee, whether he's won more games than he's lost, but it came up with nothing. What do you reckon?
All time or just in the NBL?
NBL.
I'd say I've lost more than I've won.
Yep.
I would say. I've had a lot of close years where it's been similar. I've had a couple of bad years, few good years, but I would say it's probably a bit in that 40 to 50% range would be my
40 to
guess.
50% rate. You still keep coming back. You're the other side of the ledger, right?
Very much. It's one of those things like, and the other parts of when you get to this level is some things are out of your control. Who they sign, how it works out, imports, like there's so many factors, health. Like there were some years where I was like, we are going to be so good this year. And then all of a sudden someone misses the whole season with a knee injury. Someone misses this. Someone goes out. I remember one year Kevlish and Brad Newley who were hurt at the same time, and they were our two main players. Like there's some things you can't control. And I've been in a few of those environments where I sit there and go, why can't I get any luck? But that's just the nature of the business.
Yeah, you talked about it being a business, and you've moved clubs a number of times, and you've gone into different areas. You're allowed to travel. How have you gone about coping with that, moving into a new team, and then going, right, what's the setup, what's the culture, what's the coach, what's the CEO, etc.?
Yeah, it's a process. I think sometimes you skip how hard that process is. You just think, yep, I'm happy to move. I'm excited for this. And then you get there and you realize, as you just said, you've got to figure out who's what and where do I fit and where all those little things. But it was one of those pieces where it's kind of that's just how it is. It's almost like you just like there was times where I thought I was never going to leave Sydney. I get to Brisbane, I was never going to leave Brisbane, and all of a sudden I'm back in Adelaide. So there's been a host of times where, and sometimes it's your decision, and sometimes it's not. So that's the other part to it as well.
And the data and the tech and the improvement in terms of the levels of, I suppose, player performance and monitoring, etc., from when you first started to where you are now. Do you want to comment on that?
It's definitely changed. There's a lot more put into the data and different things. I actually still believe a lot of it is not useless, but I think there's still a lot of it that we've forgot it to go back to. Just communication is the key as well. I think we get lost in numbers at times when sometimes putting your head up and just watching and observing what's going on, you can get a pretty fair read for who's at what stage and how tired someone is. But in terms of the recovery, the strength, the facilities, like just some of the access you get to some of the facilities at the moment, like even for us in Adelaide this year, we moved late December. We had one training. It was only supposed to be two sessions at the new Sassy. They built a new performance centre. we trained there and we walked in there and said, "Can we stay here?" Just the gym, the court, the recovery facility, all in that one setting. It was just elite. And when you walk in, you see everyone else going, "Yeah, let's train here." Those kind of facilities are what really helps the day to day as well.
And from your first season, the popularity of the game and the NBL, and particularly in the last 5 years, is skyrocketing. What do you reckon that's come down to?
Larry Kesselman, he took it over. He put money into it. He put the right people behind it. He had a vision for what it was going to be, and I think at the end of the day, the product has always been pretty good. Like even when I started, like the product and the personnel around has been good, but there just wasn't much behind pushing it out there. So it was a kind of only your basketball people that really knew about it. Where now I'm finding that people that have just learn about the game and they're trying to get tickets, and even out we sold out every game this year. And it's just people, families, all different types, the kids, they all want access to it. They know who people are. And I think it's all because when Larry took over, he was like, I need to turn players into stuff that's bigger than the club. And I think that's happened.
Yeah, and I think also a little bit of maybe the accessibility of KO and things like
Yep.
that as well. Like the minis and the kids can actually keep an eye on teams, and the access to mobile phones and the
Even the
groupings of the
NBL
game.
app.
Yeah,
Even the NBL app, like even for me, like being able to click on the app and seeing who's playing and just flicking on, even if I watch 5 minutes, it's just so easy to go, yep, done. Or NBL One. You can go on NBL One now and watch games all over Australia. So you basically got something all year long that you can kind of tune into, and I think that's helped big time.
absolutely. And speaking of NBL one, you're keeping a little bit open there, having another shot.
Well, I was moving back to Sydney, obviously with a step one, and I just that is my main priority, obviously, and that's why I retired because I needed to put more time into that. And so for me, going back to Sydney and then being super open to me just being in Sydney again, I was kind of like, do I do I play? Do I not? I just thought it'd be silly of me not to. At least I'm not. I didn't retire because my body's broken. I actually could keep playing, and so I just was like, if I can keep playing here and there, it keeps me in the basketball scene. It keeps me moving, and what a cool part for me, where it's kind of like where my career started is pretty much where it's now going to end.
ABA, NBL one, beginning, end. It works pretty
Yeah,
well. Yeah.
yeah. So that was a big part of it.
I'm going to ask a couple of personality traits to see whether I sort of read you pretty well. First one is confidence. Are you a confident person? Because I'm sensing that you are deep down, but only when you know the environment.
Yeah, probably a bit of that. I've gone through stages for sure, especially being in our industry. There's definitely stages where I'm like, you struggle to find it. You feel like you've lost your way a little bit. I can't do anything right. Part of being an athlete, the mental side of it is big. So I would say I definitely I'm a lot more confident in situations where I understand the surroundings. Um, but once again, it's also confidence is such a hard thing to feel like you have all the time.
What about nervous? Do you get nervous before the games?
Yep, yep,
And,
always have.
and what do you do to get rid of those nerves or ease the nerves? Is there something that you do, or is it just getting into that first tip off?
It's more getting into the game. Once you kind of get into the flow of it, I would definitely say it's dropped off compared to what it was when I was younger. As you get older, that feeling of just the repetitive of I've been here before. But definitely certain games for sure, there's that element of nerves and I think nerves are a good thing. I just think if you didn't have them, it would mean you're probably not as interested or not as in love with it anymore.
Did you feel like you played your best basketball sort of at the early or middle or later stage of your career?
I'd say around the middle. I reckon around the middle, that kind of that middle to those years in Sydney and Brisbane were probably when I played my best basketball.
Hmm. Are you a good sleeper?
At times.
Now that you're a dad,
Well, we're pretty fortunate. Jazz does a lot of the stuff with the kids, and my older two sleep pretty well, so I don't have to manage the little one as much, which is nice. But I've always been a bit of a late night owl. I've always been that kind of 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock go to sleep. Depends how busy we are, I guess, too.
And switching off from basketball, such an integral part of your family, such a centerpiece of your life. I can see in the background you got a little 3-point missile horse thing. There's some hobbies outside of basketball that tickle your fancy.
Yeah, no, horse racing is through my dad. Dad was always into horse racing. He used to race trotting horses I was little. And then when I was in Brisbane, I owned a few that you can see behind me with Tony Gollan, who's the lead trainer in Queensland. And I actually used to go down and just, especially midweek, weekends get a bit more hectic for him in terms of how professional it gets. But midweek, especially if we had a day off, I'd go down and just hang around and talk with him. And he'd want to talk basketball, I'd want to talk horses. But I found it as a great way to be around someone in a profession where it's such high stakes, and I could just see how he went around it behind the scenes. So it became a hobby for me. The step one stuff became, I guess, more than a hobby, but just something that I could engage in outside of basketball. So sometimes I'd come home from training or a game, and I'd be like filthy about something, but I'd have a call in the UK at 11 o'clock at night. So I would switch off from that and go into step one. And then obviously my family and friends. They've played the biggest part throughout my whole journey of being able to switch off. And I probably learnt in Sydney how amazing that was to have, because I get home from a game and basically at my house already was my whole friendship group. So
Right,
it
that's
quickly,
awesome.
yeah, yeah.
And the messages of support you get when you win and you do something fabulous, you get lots, and maybe you don't get as many when you don't do as well. Can you talk about the importance of your core group there?
Well, just it didn't matter to them, right? It doesn't matter if I played well and we won, I played well, we lost, I played shit and we won or lost. It doesn't matter to them. They enjoy being along on the journey. They enjoy going to games to watch me play, to watch the team play. And so just being able to come back from that, yes, we'd all talk about the game because they're also basketball people, but to be able to just talk about it, move on, switch on to something else, um, it just it made things a lot easier where you're not sitting at home just going over it in your head, because as an athlete, it does consume you. You get caught up in it 24/7.
And when you switch off, do you get a chance to listen to podcasts or watch some Netflix, etc., or is it just all encompassing as an athlete?
No, I definitely have tried. I always try and watch movies, TV shows, different things, especially when we travel. It was my chance to take advantage and switch off at times on planes to just watch and catch up on things that I thought that I heard were good or whatever it may be. I always try and listen and watch and learn some things as well.
And your mates, your support crew that have been there, what do they think of Jason? What do they know about you that others may not? Do they think you're like a really sort of quiet, funny guy? You got dry humour. What's the characteristic traits of Jason Cadee?
Oh, I don't even know. You'd have to ask them. They
Are you
always.
cheeky? You're a bit of a rat bag, you know? Yeah.
Oh, I've had my stages for sure. I'm the organizer, so
Oh, you
nothing
organise
gets
them.
sort of,
Okay.
yeah. So we, they had a joke saying I was the tip of the spear because, kind of anything ever happened if I organised it and got everyone together. So that's kind of been my thing a
Yep.
lot of the time. And it's funny, it translated to basketball too. In that world, I was just always the one, hey guys, everyone in my house, pizza and drinks or whatever it may be. And that's similar with my friendship group as well.
Yeah, it's a little bit of leadership characteristics there. Do you like being a leader?
I've enjoyed it. Once again, you never know if you're doing a great job of it or not. It's kind of a thankless job being a leader. But I enjoyed, like I said earlier, trying to help others and make others better. And that was a natural thing for me to do. So I think when I could do it naturally and I didn't have to go outside who I was, it becomes more apparent that people are just genuine about it. I did early days think leadership meant you had to be the whole rah rah, wrong thing, don't do that, don't do this. But Andre Lemanis, when I was with him, actually taught me, no, you don't have to be like that. You're better off being natural to who you are and saying it how you want to say it. You can lead in many different ways. And that kind of encouraged me to do it my own way.
Did you fear at all during the career that you veered off your natural path a little bit, or you sort of stayed the course?
No, that's the one thing as I sit here today, 5 days out from retiring from being an NBL player, that I'm really, really proud of. And I've been in some very, very tough situations through club point of view, through players with injuries or just teams that have been not good. I've seen a lot of different things, but the one thing I'm super proud of, and I think you could go back and ask anyone who was around me in that environment, I never ever veered from who I was or or changed who I was. And that's one thing I can stand today and know that I'm really proud of.
And hopefully, I'm sure you'll continue that through the step one journey as well. I've got a little question. It's called the scoreboard moment. Is there a moment in your life that sort of really defined who you are or changed the course of direction that sort of stands out in your life?
Yeah, the moment my first child arrived. I think anyone who's been through that knows that I've always been around teammates with kids and all those things, but when that little thing arrives and it's yours, it changes your outlook on everything. And so having a family and especially my own kids has definitely changed my outlook on so many things.
And when those kids grow up a little bit and they start playing sport, what's some advice that you're going to give to them?
Enjoy it. I think that's the biggest thing. Like, you got to love it. You got to have fun. And you've got to be a kid. I think at this day and age, we have so many people who are trying to make kids professional at 10 years old, 12 years old. It's not realistic. You don't know you don't know where kids are going to be when they're 16, 17, 18 as it gets to that point. And for me with my kids, it'll be play as many sports as you can. Make sure you enjoy it. Compete as long as you try hard. It's not all about winning, but obviously if you want that edge.
Even though you 40% ledger in your life, you've turned out to be an unbelievable player, right?
Well, if we go life, I think I'm ahead because I've won a lot outside of the NBL. Yes, ABA, all those things. Right, then I'm definitely ahead when you incorporate all of that.
You're sitting there happy now. Yeah, of course you are. Yeah.
But no, I think you've got to enjoy it. You need that competitive edge for sure. But I just think being a kid is about having fun. If you love it, you'll do more of it. And as you do more of it, you'll get better and better out of it. And you'll start to work out your place in amongst it all too.
Jason, one final question. It's a new question that I'm asking my guests. Is what's the biggest thing sport has given you?
Memories. Friendships, memories, just all of it. I think throughout the journey, there'll be moments, even this year, I'll look back on and go, what could have been? But even the amount of people that have messaged me or reached out to me in the last week, that is why sport's so great. Like, whether it be people that I don't know or people that I've played with, just the fact that so many people feel like they're a part of the journey and I've been able to be a part of people's lives, whether it be through not even knowing me or being teammates. I think those memories and that journey and being able to bring people together is a very cool part of it all.
Jason, thank you so much for being part of the Scoreboard podcast. I congratulate you on your journey thus far in basketball and what you've achieved on the court. Now the next journey begins as a parent and also working with Step One and the next journey ahead from a corporate point of view. And I wish you well and looking forward to following their progress. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me, Chris.